Cloning by Sam Weller. So, what is cloning? Cloning is a process in which an organism is created to have the exact same identical DNA code as another organism. To simplify this, clones are exact copies of each other. Every single thing about them is the same. So cloning can be done naturally, or it can happen in a lab. Natural cloning. Natural cloning is cloning that takes place without the help of technology or science. A great example of this is identical twins. Identical twins are a great example of natural cloning because they're born naturally, but they also are clones that have the exact same set of DNA. So the only other way of cloning it to be done is in a lab. So there are two main ways to make clones in a lab: artificial embryo twinning and somatic cell nuclear transfer. Artificial embryo twinning. Artificial embryo twinning is a low-tech cloning technique. What this means is that it's fairly simple in comparison to other techniques such as somatic cell nuclear transfer, although it is used much less commonly. So AET, artificial embryo twinning, mimics a natural process that creates identical twins. But the main difference is from AET and natural cloning is that during AET the embryos are placed in a Petri dish rather than developed in the ovaries. So the process of AET is a very early embryo is separated into individual cells, which divide and develop in a Petri dish. The embryos are then placed into a surrogate mother where they finish developing. Eventually the surrogate mother will give birth to the two newly cloned artificial twins. So the other type of cloning is somatic cell nuclear transfer, also referred to as SCNT. It is the most common type of cloning and is also referred to as nuclear transfer. To understand SCNT, it must be broken up first. So SE stands for somatic cell. A somatic cell is a cell in the body that contains two complete sets of DNA. So unlike reproductive cells, such as sperm or egg cells that only contain one set, it contains both. What this enables it to do is reproduce by itself, because a human needs two sets of DNA, and the sperm and the egg come together to form two, but the somatic cell already has two. And after the somatic cell comes nuclear. So the nuclear stands for the nucleus, and the nucleus is what holds all the DNA. And last but not least, transfer. Transfer is moving one object from one place to another, and in this, the somatic cell and nucleus are transferred from one to another. So the process of SCNT is a somatic cell containing the nucleus is transferred into the egg cell. After a couple of chemical tweaks, the egg cell containing the new nucleus is behaving just like a fertilized egg. It develops an embryo, and the embryo is then planted into the surrogate mother where it can give birth to a clone. So a good example of this is Dolly the sheep. Dolly was a sheep that was cloned through SCNT. It was the first ever mammal to be cloned successfully from an adult somatic cell, and it lived to be 6 years old, from 1996 to 2003. It was a revolutionary change to the cloning world. It was such a revolutionary change because it proved that large complex organisms like sheep, cattle, horses could in fact be cloned, and that opened up doors for human cloning. Human cloning. Even though it may take hundreds of years to perfect, human cloning has many very good outputs that it could give us. Some of these outputs are curing heart attacks by we can clone new heart tissue and even hearts. It is a cure for infertility, meaning that people who can't have babies, especially women who want to have a clone or a baby, can clone themselves and have a real baby with their own DNA rather than adopting or trying many other options. And last but not least, by cloning organs, we can save the transplant list, and it can help many people waiting for transplants. And it also won't treat the organ like a foreign organ, so it will develop in the body much better than a transplant organ would. But even though human cloning seems to have so many good ideas, one question remains: is it right? This is what the church says. John 3-5, Jesus answered, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God." What I believe Jesus is saying here is that unless you are truly born as a child and right, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. And cloning is not being born right. Cloning is just being a copy. And really, I don't think you can have a soul, really, if you are a clone. Second, human life as a gift of God is sacred and inviolable. That was the 1995 encyclical letter of Pope John Paul II. What I think he's saying here is that human life is a gift from God, and it is something that we shouldn't be trying to toy with and create, because it is sacred to us. and that clones are not really humans because they're not made from God. And last but not least, a bit of information that says there have been many attempts to try to prohibit human cloning, but many have been voted against or haven't passed through the Senate. And that's the end of my project. And this is the bibliography.